So the Heineken Champions Cup kicked off once again this past weekend, with the new format of knockout rounds, which include 2 legs, obviously home and away. So we're halfway through the round of 16, and I thought, why not take a look at the results of the first leg and how it looks going into next week. If you're new here, then please subscribe to the channel, and if you enjoy the video, then please give it a like. So let's get into the fixtures, starting off with the first game of the weekend, Connacht versus Leicester. So, Friday night in Ireland against 2 Irish teams, who actually faced off against each other a few weeks ago, and Leinster absolutely dominated and won by 45 points to 8. This time around it was slightly different, with both sides having more international players back fit. Connacht started the game really well with an early try by Porch, and at this point their intensity was brilliant, right where it needed to be for a knockout game. Leinster only really came into the game 20 minutes later and started having more and more possession. James Lowe then took his opportunity and ran in under the post from almost 50 metres out. And then about 5 minutes later, Lowe got his second try with more good phases of play. Much like the first half, Connacht started the second really well and found themselves in Leinster's 22, where they managed to get some points, but only a penalty kick. They weren't able to keep the pressure on, and Leinster managed to get a scrum deep in Connacht's 22, where it was an easy walk-in for Keenan. And now the score is 14-23. Leinster kept the pressure on, but there was a head contact by Gibson Park, and he was yellow carded. Connacht weren't able to get territory, or they were in fact, and they did push themselves over for a try to bring the scores up to 21-23. Another penalty was added by Leinster, and the game ended 21-26 to Leinster. So the game is perfectly set up for next week. You would expect Leinster to do the business at home, but you never know. Now on to Saturday, where plenty of games were played, and first up was an all-French affair with Bordeaux versus La Rochelle, who also faced each other last week. This was a great game to watch, in the sun and some brilliant rugby. This game had some real stars in it, from the Grand Slam winning French team like Aldrit, Woki, Danty and Antonio. The first try of the game came in the 21st minute when Raymond Rule weaved his way through the defence after some good wide-to-wide play by La Rochelle. A fair few penalties by Bordeaux left the scores 3-16 just after half-time. Bordeaux then finally got into the game with a smart driving maul, which was eventually scored by Woki. La Rochelle put more pressure on, and with some really good play eventually scored in the corner with another French Grand Slam winner in Danty. More pressure led to a yellow card and a penalty try for La Rochelle, but Bordeaux did manage to fight back with a try from Mori, the Italian international. Unfortunately, they couldn't keep it up and conceded another penalty where it ended 13-31. So a lot for Bordeaux to do next week, but it will be a great game, once again I'm sure. Another game where both sides were from the same country, with Sale versus Bristol. No Tom Curry, but Tuilagi in for Sale. For Bristol, Sinclair and Randall started after a disappointing Six Nations with England. And Nathan Hughes was also back after being on loan with Hartbury and Bath lately. The game started off like a ping pong match, and actually remained that way the whole game. At 70 minutes, the scores were only 6-3, until Randrandra, who was on the bench, broke the line off first phase and scored the only try of the game. It ended 9-10 to Bristol, so definitely all to play for next week. Next up was debatably the game of the round with Toulouse versus Ulster. Obviously Toulouse are the reigning champions, and they got off to a really good start with a try in the 6th minute. But not long after, at about the 10 minute mark, Toulouse were shown a straight red card and had to play the rest of the game with 14 men. 2 minutes later, Harlequins scored a try in the corner for Ulster, which brought the scores level. Even though having only 14 men, Toulouse led at the break. Harlequins soon got his second try after half-time, which took Ulster within 1 point. Another try was scored for Ulster, after Toulouse had got tired in defence. Toulouse then had to fight back, but Balakoon intercepted superbly and then scored his hat-trick. Luckily for Toulouse, they did manage to fight back in the final minutes, and the game ended 20 points to 26, which in the end, Toulouse will definitely take after playing nearly the whole game with 14 men. Once again, all to play for in the second leg, in Ulster might I add, which will definitely be a mouth-watering tie. Next is Ulster versus Munster, two absolute huge powerhouses of European rugby. Exeter had the home advantage for this tie, and that proved handy, as Hogg scored in the corner after a quick tap and go on halfway, with only 6 minutes gone. Munster remained on the ropes, and with 8 to 9 penalties conceded, they received a yellow card before half-time, which is when Exeter managed to score another try, making it 10-0. Exeter then received their yellow card for head contact around the 60-minute mark, and then a few minutes later received another one, bringing them down to 13 men. But they managed to get the ball back into Munster's 22. Munster kicked the ball back to Exeter from a goal line dropout, and then up steps Hogg, who smashes it 50 metres out with a drop goal. Absolutely insane, one of the best drop goals I think you'll ever see. Munster then fought back themselves and scored not long after. And in the last few minutes, Woodburn had a good run, probably from around 30 metres out, but Earls made a really good try-saving tackle to keep the final score at 13-8. Another tight game. We'll see who wins it next time at Thomond Park. Another all-French tie now with Stade Francais versus Racing. Racing dominated much of the first half, having kicked 4 penalties to Stade Francais 2, meaning that the score was 6-12 at half-time. Nothing else really to report in the first half. It wasn't until the 63rd minute that more points were scored, and it was in favour of Racing, who got over the try line with Gaël Ficou. A few minutes later, there was a terrible collision by the Stade Francais replacement hooker, who absolutely took out a Racing player in the air, and it was of course a straight red card. A few more penalties were kicked, and in the end, it ended 9-22 to Racing. So not the most enjoyable rugby, but a solid score for Racing, definitely away from home. A game which did have plenty of good rugby was Montpellier versus Harlequins. It did take a while to kick off though, with the first points coming in the 22nd minute, when Montpellier scored their first try after a poor Marcus Smith kick. Zach Mercer then got over for his first try, whilst Andreas de Hazen was sent off to the bin for 10 minutes. Cobus Reinach then scored shortly after, and then shortly after that, Mercer bagged his second try, making the score very favourable to Montpellier going at half-time with a 26-0 lead. It was then Montpellier who scored first in the second half, taking the score to 34-0. Until finally Harlequins did fight back, scoring 4 tries in succession, whilst Montpellier kicked 2 penalties. So the final score ended up at 40 points to 26. Now, for any other team, you think that they were out of the tie, but Harlequins love being the underdog and coming back from losing positions. So if anyone can do it, they can. And finally, to round off the first leg of round 16 was Clermont versus Leicester in a very sunny France. Clermont started well with some good play to score, after some decent phases going wide to wide several times. But of course, Leicester muscled over as they do with Ellis Genge, and they did it again from a driving maul with Montoya scoring this time. It was the same story once again just after half time, when Van Poortvliet sniped off the back of a driving maul. Leicester kicked well and gained good territory, and this led to another try, but this time scored by winger Salmaki. Yet another red was shown in this round, but this time for Leicester. However, that didn't stop them scoring points. They did score yet again with another try, even though a man down. The game ended 10 points to 29, which is actually impressive seeing as though Leicester received that red card. So that's the end of the roundup from all of this weekend's Heineken Champions Cup games. We get to do it all again this weekend for the second leg, and we have some really, really mouthwatering games to come. I actually do rate the home and away legs because it just adds another dynamic to the knockout rounds. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are down in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for the Challenge Cup roundup.